Hello and welcome to an Echo of Glory. I'm Johnny Blaine. Joining me, Jake Robson.
Hello.
Hello. You look confused, as if to say, which one of me is Jake Robson?
Which one of me?
It's you.
Who am I?
Yeah, and Gary Diamond.
You've not got your cap on today.
I don't wear it every time.
You wear it most times.
I wore it last time, but I hadn't been in for a while. Depends how I'm feeling on a Monday.
Disappointed. Sorry, morning.
Morning, Gary. Morning, Gary Diamond. All right.
That's a good segue, though. The cap, which you can buy on anechoofglory.com.
Yeah. Hey.
Amongst other things.
Sorry, I've literally just got in, so I only just noticed.
Yeah, you have literally just got in.
sat down.
You'll note we're starting at 10:46 when we really
My
should have
fault.
started at 10:30. But we ran a poll. Jake ran a poll.
Jake didn't run
Sorry,
the poll.
James ran the poll. We were going to be a smidge late. Are we waiting for Johnny, Jake, or Gary? And 67% of the people thought it was Jake.
Ouch.
And
They would be right normally.
They
to
knew
be
it
fair.
wasn't me. They thought the second one was Gary, but it was.
Although one of those votes was you, wasn't it?
No, I did vote for you. Yeah,
Thanks.
I voted for you even though I knew you were here because you were
Great.
annoying me. All right, we're going to do something a little bit different. We haven't got a game to review. We haven't got a game to preview.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. So we're going
We're
to.
not going to review the Legends game
We'll come to the Legends
minute
game.
by minute.
Could have done. We'll come. We're going to do something a little bit different. Chat about Spurs in a different way. We've obviously got some club news. I trust you all went to a non-league game on non-league weekend.
Was it really non-league?
Non-league day, yeah.
Oh, I was actually working, as you'll know. Didn't have time.
Didn't have time.
I was working on the internationals.
Gary,
What?
you went to a non-league game?
I did not.
No, all right. I went to Kettering against Telford.
Whoa.
Right, first,
Is that a derby?
no. Well, this is great actually. This has never happened to me.
Are they not- they're
I've been
close,
to
though,
probably
are they?
thousands and thousands of football games in my life.
Really?
Yeah, this has never happened to me before. They're not that close. It's League 7, Southern Premier League or something. Kettering atop, Telford a third. There was aggro when they met the other way, the reverse fixture. There was 1,600 people there.
That's a lot.
Kettering get a good crowd. And they average about 1,000, but there was 1,600. They kept.
Are they rivals?
That's what I'm saying.
It's become like a rivalry because there's been aggro and they're the biggest teams in that division.
Yeah, Kettering used to be higher up.
Yeah, yeah. So Kettering have fallen. Gaza used to manage them.
Wow.
It's a bit of a naughty game, is it?
It's a bit of a naughty game. So, and what normally happens in non-league is that teams fans will stand behind the goal that they're attacking, and at half-time they'll just switch over. So that they'll walk around. Yeah, so they're always just behind the goal they're attacking. Yeah. But they wouldn't let this happen on Saturday because they kept the Telford fans in that end and they proper segregated it. And at full time, just before full time, Kettering are 1-0 down. There's an announcement.
Did they rush them?
Pardon?
Did they rush them?
Well, no. There's an announcement at full time saying for safety reasons, all Kettering fans are going to be left in the ground at full time. We're like, I want to go home. I don't live locally. I want to go.
I'm not even a fan.
So
That's
we
what
start to
you're
leave. Kettering are 1-0 down. We thought, let's go. And just as we leave, we're like by the pitch, and Kettering equalised, which was great. Wouldn't let us out. So they've kept 1,600 Kettering fans in to allow 250 Telford fans to leave. And when they finally let us out, it was like old school. Telford fans and the Kettering fans were going at each other. There was a police cordon. There was loads of police. My son was with me. This is his first window into how football should be.
Well, and what was
amazing.
Who was holding who back?
The Kettering fans were going at
No,
the Telford
between
fans.
you and your son.
Oh, right.
He's like, Dad, I want to get at it.
But that was proper, like Division 7, 1,600. This is, the English pyramid is undefeated. There you go.
It's alive and well. Alive and well.
Yeah.
So I'm late, as we know, and so James has very kindly made me a cup of tea, but I'm not. I wish I could show this to the camera.
It's a strange colour, isn't it?
Does it taste alright? Have you got one?
Yeah,
as
it
well?
tastes all right, but I
Tastes
might have to stop drinking it. When I keel over, someone else will have to
This,
take
James.
over.
Thank you. I kind of appreciate it.
All right, enough of that. So let's do a little bit of club news. We'll start with the women's team. I watched them play West Ham yesterday. They were absolutely dreadful and lost 2-0. Kept trying to play out from the back. It's good to see that the style of play is still working at the club. Yeah, really, really going well. They've won 1 in 7 and barely scored any goals. They're awful. Something needs to be done about all of this. Senior teams keep losing. Internationals. Christian Romero played 90 minutes.
No, shock.
We took him off against Fulham. Thank God
we took him off.
Yes, he could play in a big game.
It's that phrase, the tail wagging the dog, isn't it? We've suddenly no one ever rested a player in a league match because they knew that they're going to play twice in an international game. Normally it's the other way around.
Nonsense.
Can you imagine Fergie doing that?
No.
Giving Giggs 45 minutes because he knew he was going to play for Wales twice. Bad example because he sacked Wales off, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Didn't Romero, wasn't there renewed quotes as well about the medical treatment that he...
Yeah, he reportedly thanked again the Argentina staff for getting him out of this, what did he call it?
The hole that he was in, the dark hole that he was in. Yeah,
I don't know. I take that
hole.
with a bit of a pinch of salt.
Would you? I mean, it's been reported. He said it.
No, but that he said it. Ange was asked about this at his press conference, and he just.
What's he going to say?
Either he's an amazing.
We only have 5% of the information.
No, either he's an amazing actor, Ange, or he was just like, yeah. Sometimes players they go and get help from the medical.
Well, if he's a good actor, maybe that can be a new job. As Gary Beck says in our comments,
what would you cast him?
Oh, what would I cast Ange?
The
Australian.
Don't do
the
it.
Sopranos.
No,
Tony Soprano.
Okay.
No, I'm not gonna. I've got some respect for the guy. He could he could be the Aussie Tony Soprano, definitely. Yeah.
Sure.
It'd be called the Never Wins or something. I don't know. Bentancur, as Gary Beck says, was mustered for Uruguay. Yeah, he was excellent against Argentina. They lost 1-0 Uruguay. Bentancur was excellent. Played quite deep, but his passing was good.
His break-up of play was good.
Yeah.
Right. So what's happened?
So another,
how's he managed?
Arguably playing with better players, but probably coached a bit better, even in those 5 days that they get together.
He's not playing with better players at Uruguay.
But,
is he?
Yeah, of course he is.
Well, not across the board.
Valverde is better than anyone we've got.
But it's funny. I didn't watch the game. I just watched a highlights clip of Bentancur. I mean, but he was playing in a midfield three and the deeper one of that midfield three.
Yeah.
But it looked to me like Argentina weren't pressing as aggressively as a Premier League team might press.
No, they really weren't. They were sitting off.
Yeah, so
that's international football.
So that's the first thing I noticed, and that does make a bit of a difference. That he wasn't being aggressively hounded and pressed.
Yeah.
It also looked like when he was receiving the ball out of defence, he was having time. He knew he had a bit of time. I think if you give a class player like Bentancur that, then
he's still a top player. Isn't he?
But when he was playing really well for us, he was able to wriggle out of that tight press, and that was what we loved about him so much, because we were saying we don't have a player at the club who can play like this. So I don't. Don't know what's happened.
There's been some interesting pictures of Bentancur this week as well. On the one hand, some pictures that people have suggested is a breaking press story that he's signing a new contract, and then on the other hand, Atletico Madrid are making inquiries to us about the availability of Bentancur in the summer.
Yeah, I saw that. Conflicting.
Maybe both are true.
Yeah, all right. So more international stuff.
It can't be. They can't both be true.
They could be. I mean, you could sign a contract.
We could have rung up
but
they could have rung up and asked, and we said sorry, sign a contract.
Which proves that the whole thing, more often than not, is a load of rubbish.
Yeah. But I mean, those pictures did look like they could be contract breaking pictures. Are you moving on, or are you? What are you doing?
No, I'm moving on.
All
right.
Looks like you're doing work emails.
No, I was just checking something. Yeah, sorry. Could you just speak about? No, I was just checking something about last night's games. Davies. I know I was emailing James, the producer. Not emailing, messaging. Check your messages, James. Ben Davies scored and assisted for Wales against Kazakhstan. Gary's mate Johnson started and was pretty poor.
No, really? Was it a shock?
Yeah. Pedro Porro played against the Netherlands.
Came on,
started in the first leg, came on yesterday. They went through on penalties. Udogie started both games as Italy lost to Germany.
They drew 3-3 on the night.
It was a mad game last night. They were 3-0 down and came back and drew 3-3. Berryval missed the defeat against Luxembourg. They play again tonight or tomorrow. Basuma started a win against Comoros. Mikey Moore played for England under-19s against Wales and Turkey. Odobert started for France. They beat England under-21s 5-3.
Absolutely ripped England apart, by the way.
He played really well. A game that Gray and Tell came on as a sub in that game. Papsar came on as a sub in a 0-0 draw against Sudan. Sounds like a classic. And Son started a 1-1 draw.
Over here.
What? It's a terrible, not a good result for Senegal, drawing 0-0 with Sudan. And Son started a 1-1 draw with Oman. Also a poor result. A home draw in a World Cup qualifier against Oman. Didn't go down well. I was reading some reports about that. And then we had the Legends game, which I know some people have mentioned. Pirlo's free kick, unbelievable. Ryan Pearce, that's the best I've seen a Spurs team play in a long time. looked like a lot of fun. They raised good money for the community.
Who did Pirlo curl one
I don't actually know.
He curled it past Vorm. It was Gomez in the first half. He made a very good save. Very good save.
Can't believe you picked Vorm in a big game like
that. And then Vorm came on second half. And
who started in goal first half?
Gomez.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he made a really good save. And then Pirlo. Well, it was Vorm in the second half, and he just pinged one top corner. It's a funny one actually, because a lot of the players, like, you're sort of thinking, really legends, but then like you get some true legends like the Falcao was there, Mark Falcao was there.
But the rest of them were kind of legend. They were. You want to name? Should we name and shame?
There were quite a few that were like, really?
Leslie King.
No, I mean, there were definite legends there.
Yeah,
but there were.
But these things.
Stefan Freund. Okay, I mean, really, like.
Yeah, but there's different legend. I'd say Stefan Freund is a sort of.
He's a cult hero.
He's a cult
hero. Okay,
there's a big difference.
He's not a legend.
He's not a legend. Like, I mean, but yeah, Falcao.
You're always going to need a bit of filler in these.
But here's what you do see. I think the game was basically played at walking pace. What you do see is those players who could always play. I mean, Berbatov apparently didn't have a great game, but I saw a clip of him where the ball's coming over the top, and he just extended his leg up to his shoulder height and plucked the ball out of the air. Falcao.
Well, that's like his party piece, isn't it?
Falcao taking the corners come across. I think it's come off someone, gone high up in the air. And Falcao, with his first touch, has just taken a player out of the game and then had a shot off the line. Like it's the touch of these.
They thought
players,
they were booking Falcao, but they got Mark Falcao instead.
But the touch of these players is just like, it just doesn't go. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it was lovely to see. And Jermaine Defoe, people rightly were saying, if you're in League One or the Championship and you need some goals, because he looked fit as a fiddle, and he scored some great goals. Or I think it was the one goal I saw him score.
To be fair, he's talked about this as well. He retired at the top, and that was sort of what he wanted to do that rather than play for League One.
Well, you say he played for like Rangers and
but winning. Didn't he win at Rangers?
Yeah.
Or did he not? I think he won. Did he not win the league at Rangers?
Don't know.
Yeah, Sandro, another cult hero. I wouldn't say that he was a legend, but another absolute cult hero, and he scored a very Sandro goal.
Yeah, he only scored bangers.
Yeah. He scored another one yesterday.
Sandro has become far more popular with Tottenham fans since he
left. He's like
Freund was popular at the time. I agree in his own way. Sandro was the epitome of us not being able to defend.
I think Sandro was one of those players who sort of became better because he was so often injured. He was one of those players that was always better when he was injured. So what I mean by that is everybody appreciated him, but when he wasn't playing, you really noticed that he wasn't playing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And he became a bit of a cult hero and a bit of a cult legend. I disagree that he became better or more popular.
I think he's becoming more popular because he's doing a lot. You see him. I had a picture with Sandro. Sandro did this. Sandro did that.
Yeah.
He's sort of staying around.
Yeah.
When he was playing, it was Sandro did this and Sandro did that.
I loved Sandro. He was great. But, Sandro, Wilson, Palacios, these were the first sort of tough midfielders that we'd lacked for so long, and gave us a bit of a backbone, gave us a bit of steel, made us a bit nastier to play against.
Yeah.
And was sort of the foundation blocks of Tottenham not becoming the soft touch that we had been throughout the 90s and early noughties.
Yeah. All right.
And then you get somebody like Freund who wanted to be that, but ultimately was a soft touch himself and utterly useless at football.
Stefan Freund, he was a nutter.
He was dreadful.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't a great footballer. People thought it was hilarious that he never scored a goal. It's like, that's not funny.
I have it on good authority that he's still crackers.
I mean, the most embarrassing thing, I'm pretty sure this was Stefan Freund, we were playing United, and Keane made a horrible foul on the near side, well, I'll say the near side, my side where I was sitting, of the pitch. And Freund made a 30-yard dash over to Keane, like the hard man, like he was going to go mad at him. Roy Keane jumped up and Freund just veered and went in the other direction.
In Gary's playing career, one Spurs player.
Gary scored more goals than Stefan Freund.
Yeah, okay, I ran around like Stefan Freund, but I think I wasn't very talented. But I think I actually was more impactful on my teams than Stefan Freund was. Couldn't be much less impactful.
Yeah, I've heard you're getting asked to the next Spurs Legends game. All right, so that's the club news, really. We haven't got anything else to talk about because we have, but that's not the end of the show, unfortunately.
Michael Brown, legend, really?
No, who said that?
Well, he scored yesterday. That's what I'm saying. He was in the Legends lineup and scored. Michael
but
Brown.
he's another one who's sort of doing stuff for the club, I think.
Brownie.
So, no game to review, no game to preview. Don't want to talk about Ange too much. I'm sure we might get mentioned. But we put out there, what should we talk about this week? And we had a really good message from a listener, Luke. And he said, in an age where almost every opinion you may have regarding anything Spurs is there for all to see on the internet, what is a Spurs hill that you will die on? So we've got our Spurs hills that we'll die on. Those guys and girls in the comments, let us know what is the Spurs hill you'll die on. We might be able to come to some of those at the end. But we've had a good response on Twitter. A lot of people have messaged in. But we're going to start with Luke's hill. We'll discuss it. And we'll come to yours, Jake, and Gary's, and I'll give you mine. So Luke says his Tottenham hill was he always maintained Lloris peaked before Spurs did and eventually outgrew him and should have been replaced long before he eventually was. Adam Nathan also said something about Hugo Lloris. I remember when we signed that he wasn't as good as we
I agree
thought.
with that.
I remember when we signed Hugo Lloris was just after that Ireland-France playoff when Henry did the handball. And long after.
That's like 2010.
Yeah, so we signed Lloris, 2012?
Okay,
so it was not long after. And he made a brilliant save in that game. Ireland nearly equalised. And he made a really good save. And I remember thinking, God, can't remember who our goalie was at the time. But wouldn't it be amazing to have the France...
Possibly Gomez.
Possibly. The France number one goalkeeper in our team. And then we signed him.
It was Brad Friedel because he kept him out of the team when he first arrived.
Right, okay.
I was like, we signed the France number one goalkeeper. We came kind of out of nowhere. We weren't that good at the time. I thought Lloris was great. And I'm seeing this week actually, Lloris has come up a few times. People are hating on him.
But that's not what...
No, but Adam Nathan similarly said, I think he made the point that his hill was that basically he wasn't that good.
Well, but this person's hill is that he should have been got rid of earlier than... But that's different to what you're saying.
I know, but I'm just talking about Lloris in general.
Yeah.
I've discussed Lloris on this show previously and said similar, where I feel as though he was a very good keeper. I don't think he engenders the love of the Tottenham faithful as much as a guy that had been at the club for 10 years should have done. I think the way he bowed out of the club encapsulated his career
that Newcastle
as a whole. Where he sort of slunk off at half time, never to be seen again. And this was a guy that wore the armband for 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons. And to me was kind of a little bit like the epitome of why we didn't achieve under Pochettino. I'm not saying it's all his fault, but if he was the leader, and I just felt ultimately he was a bit gutless, not there when it really mattered, not a leader, not a captain. I know that they say that, similar to Son, he's the leader, he's the captain now because he's a big influence and a big voice and a big presence in the changing room. But out on the pitch, this guy was not a leader. You couldn't rely on him to not throw one into the net in big games, in big moments. He did it for France, threw him into the net
but
in big games.
Won a World Cup.
Because the French team was sensational. Like absolutely sensational. And what he had in the French national team was 10 other players who were all at the very, very top of the game. Whereas at Tottenham, he didn't have that. Actually, he was meant to be the leader and one of the ones you could rely on. And I just never felt that you could. He also, we spoke about this in the context of when he released his autobiography and there was, but a chapter on Tottenham in it. That was the bulk of his career. It just doesn't feel as though he has much love for the club either.
That's what I think has the straw that broke the camel's back that with people and their memories of Lloris. I think the fact that he tailed off, it happens.
Yeah.
Like, you can be good and then you can suddenly not be very good. Everyone remembers Dele Alli fondly. Obviously he tailed off, but everyone remembers the good times. But Lloris in the book, I think, was like, come on, mate. Especially after the Newcastle thing.
Exactly. But I think Dele Alli, it was very clear that he loved the club. He was passionate for the club. I never really got that sense with Lloris.
Maybe. But what I mean is, I think all would have been, as time went on, we'd have remembered, Lloris for some... He made errors in big games. And I think that's one of the things that will...
Almost goalkeepers.
But if I think about keepers at Tottenham in my time, that I sort of, loved as goalies... Gomez made horrendous mistakes.
Yeah.
But I've just got much more affection for Aurelio Gomez.
Yeah, but the person, not the goalkeeper.
No, just
Gomez was not a good goalkeeper. I'm sorry.
He was.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, Lloris was twice the goalkeeper.
Yeah, of course he was, right? But I've got much more affection for Aurelio Gomez.
The person.
Neil Sullivan.
The person.
Neil Sullivan.
Neil Sullivan, I love Neil
No,
Sullivan.
Neil Sullivan was actually quite at a time.
Paul Robinson was probably my all-time favourite keeper for Tottenham.
Yeah.
Right? Like, but these players, you felt like they enjoyed wearing the badge. They were proud to wear the badge. Whereas I always felt for Lloris as though he felt that Spurs were beneath him, but he couldn't quite get a club.
Yeah, okay. Was that maybe the fault of the club? We've got the France captain here who's won a World Cup.
Yeah.
And it's like he's trying to do this stuff, and the club which we've talked about before in other ways. The club are like happy with here, and he's wanting to go here, and the club are not getting
I don't
there.
think. But the issue is, I don't think Lloris ever was there. I think Lloris was at the level of the club. I don't think he was as good a keeper as people make out. And I think, at the end of the day, he should have realised that he and Tottenham were actually the perfect match.
Yeah,
the perfect match for each other.
I think that's fair. I think that he was never, as much as Tottenham fans would like to say that in the peak Poch years, the 2016s, he was like, Poch used to call him, didn't he call him the best goalie in the world or best goalie in the Premier League? One of those he'd said a couple of times, and you're like, come on, like he is good, but he's not outstanding. He's not an Alisson now. Forget the feet and all that.
That was a problem for Lloris throughout.
Yeah, latterly. But I think that's fair. I think he was about where we were at. But
all right. So Jake.
But
did we outgrow him, and should he have been replaced long before he was?
That was what I was going to come on to. That's difficult because how are you going to get rid of a keeper like that?
Yeah.
Because First, he's the France captain. He was part of a good. It's very difficult.
Yeah. He is a figurehead and a statesman, and for us to have got rid of him, you've got to replace him with something really top class. But
we didn't spend lots of money on him, but in order to replace him, you're looking at 40-50 million quid for whoever that would have been.
Yeah.
So I think it's true.
All right, so that's Luke's Hill, and it was Luke's idea. What's that?
Luke Hill.
Danny Hill.
Damon Hill.
If you've got Spurs Hill that you will die on, please do message us. We've got a few that we will come to, and hopefully we'll come to some of yours.
And I think Jorge Pena makes a good point. There were 4 or 5 other players on the team that should have been replaced before him. So as much as, and that's absolutely 100% correct, as much as Lloris was a problem for a number of years, 3 or 4 years actually, there were bigger issues, and that's why. But
yeah. Son of the Gun mentioned some great names: Ted Ditchburn, Pat Jennings, Ray Clements, all proper keepers. I think the role of a keeper also has changed a lot.
Yeah, I think it's an unfair comparison really, because keepers and it really started when Lloris came to Tottenham. Keepers were starting to be asked to play with their feet a lot more, and that just changed the whole role of a goalkeeper. Like beyond, you got the great shot stoppers like your Jennings, Clements, Ditchburns, whatever it would be in the past. But but the keeper role was very different. So I'm not really sure you can compare keepers today of keepers of yesteryear.
I'm going to ask you then, Jake Robson. What is the Spurs Hill that you will die on?
Why do I have to go first?
I'll go first if you want.
I'll go first. The Spurs Hill that I will die on is that Nuno, at the very least, was the right guy at the wrong time, and at the very worst, was given a really rough hand by the club and by the fans.
Are you saying that because Nottingham Forest are third in the league? Just to clarify, you said this before Nottingham Forest were any good. I thought
the fact that it got to the point where he was the 6th or whatever choice was a really, really poor bit of management by the top of the club for a start. And then the fans didn't buy into him. And then after 7 games or whatever it was, he was gone.
That's a big hill.
Yeah. I mean, I said this to people at the time. No one remembers this, but he got Wolves promoted and finished 7th with them twice, back-to-back seasons. So that includes the first season coming up, and that includes playing in the Europa League and then finishing 7th with them again, 2 seasons running, and then he had a poor season with them.
Okay.
And then
Gary, are we entitled?
It's just plays into that. And he's now doing really good things with Nottingham.
Yeah,
Forest.
Jake Sanders says we didn't have a shot on target for 3 straight games under Nuno. Are you saying he should have been given longer?
What was
no, I just think that I don't think he should have been given longer. No, I think that's why I think at worst or at best it was the right guy at the wrong time, because coming after Mourinho and Conte and then Mourinho, we probably didn't want another Nuno. But the fact that he was made to look like the guy who was the 7th choice, the fans were never going to take to that, were they?
What was interesting with Nuno was, if I remember right, he had really sort of found his success at Wolves with a very solid formation, which was a 3-5-2, and I'm pretty sure
3-4-3,
3-4-3, whatever. Basically 3 at the back.
Yeah, wing backs. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Johnny, but I'm pretty sure that's what he used to
play. It was Doherty
and he came to Tottenham and was, I'd say apparently, but you could see it in the way that he was playing, given very explicit instructions that he was not to play 3 at the back, he had to play 4. And I think that was to do with Paratici saying, we want you to play a more expansive, more attacking brand of football than you played at Wolves. And it was a little bit like, well, you're getting a manager who has found success and knows a way to achieve success, and you're asking him to change the way that he manages. So, I felt from the beginning that he was on a bit of a hiding to nothing. I always felt as though he was a bit of a stopgap, because I felt Paratici believed that he could always get Conte. Conte, for me, turned it down in the summer because he didn't trust that Kane wasn't off.
Yep.
So we got Nuno in. Kane stays. And then it's like, well, let's throw Nuno under a bus and get Conte in. And look, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but I just sort of feel as though they didn't allow Nuno to play the way that he wanted. They kind of tied one hand behind his back and they were waiting for him to fail, because once it was clear that Kane wasn't going that summer, here you go, Antonio, you've got Harry Kane. And sure enough, Conte joined mid-season, which didn't really make much sense in the end. So that's my theory on it. But do I think that Nuno could have been a good manager for Spurs? Ultimately, I'm going to disagree, because this might be an entitled thing, but I just don't think that... I saw another one of the comments saying that Spurs should always play a certain way.
Hang on, might come to that.
Might come to that. But this ties. but this kind of ties into that. I just don't think Nuno has... I think Nuno will always do very well at clubs where he can exceed expectations, rather than having a yardstick that is set at 4th or 5th and having to hit that to be par.
Maybe. But I didn't necessarily say he'd have done well. I just said I don't think he was given a very a fair crack. And you'll allow me to die on that hill.
Yeah, that can be true. Well, I mean, I've already agreed with that by virtue of the fact that I said he had one hand tied behind his back and was told not to play the formation that he had found success with.
But luckily, Johnny won't let me die on that hill. So I assume he's going to keep me alive, which is very nice of you.
All I remember about Nuno's appointment was that it was our 3rd appointment in a row whose manager ended with an O.
Very good.
We won those first 3 games 1-0. And we're top of the league. We then had that awful game in Portugal against Pacos Ferreira. Lost 3 in a row. We sort of stumbled to that Man United game. Lost 3-0. He took off Mora for Bergwijn, didn't he?
Mm.
And he got booed.
I mean, that just about says it all, isn't it?
And then he was
sacked. One hand behind his back.
But
Mora for Bergwijn. Wow.
But if Conte hadn't been available, it's fascinating to know how long.
Well, that's the point.
Yeah,
I think if Conte hadn't been available, then I don't think it would. And you keep in mind as well, Paratici stormed out of that United game, didn't he? If I remember right, he got up and made a big public show of, and that was always that was it. He was done. So I do think he was a bit of a sacrificial lamb. I do agree with you on that.
Who's next?
Okay. Who is next? I've lost a sheet of paper here. Gary. Yeah, you, Gary.
Okay, I've got 2. One of them is...
Two?
No, a hill is one.
There's one hill. This isn't a mountain range, all right?
Should I go for
this is the diamond. This is a whole
Dolomite.
Should I go for my non-controversial one or my controversial one?
The controversial one?
Yeah, the controversial...
Oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this because people are going to start... right.
Come on.
The hill that I'm going to die on is this. Robbie Keane, in his time at Tottenham, was a tremendous player. There is no doubt about that. But the hill that I die on is this. I actually think that the hero status that Robbie Keane achieved during his time is what held us back for so long. And I'll tell you why. Is because...
It's your hill, you're allowed to die on it?
It is because... is because we loved Robbie Keane because he was, yes, a very, very good player. I always felt at that time we were a club that had established ourselves around 5th or 6th, thereabouts, and we're looking to break top 4. I always felt Robbie Keane was not a top 4 striker and was not good enough for a top 4 team. Okay. And that we were lauding him and heralding him and raising him up as some sort of god was actually the problem at the club at that time. And as a consequence, I found it hard to love Robbie Keane, which was unfair on Robbie Keane himself, of course, but I found it hard to love Robbie Keane. Now, what then happened was I used to say at the time, Robbie Keane will never play for a top 4 club. And that's the problem, he's our best player and he's not good enough for where we should be trying to go. What then happened was that he was bought by Liverpool and people were very quick to go, you're wrong. 6 months later, he was back at Tottenham because guess what? He wasn't good enough for a top 4 club. So that's my hill that I die on, and I do love Robbie Keane. I want to say that, and Robbie Keane is a tremendous footballer.
Jack Sanders says, only player to score a hat-trick for Tottenham this season.
At that time, I felt that our hero worship of Robbie Keane was everything that was wrong with the aspirations of us, the fans, and it annoyed me a lot.
Interesting hill. 91, let me just say, Jake, before you go, 91 goals in 238 Premier League appearances for Tottenham. I'm just saying, you're not saying he's not a bad player.
I'm not questioning his record, nor his love for the club, nor what he did for the club.
Yeah.
I'm saying that at the time, the fact that he was our best player is why we did not break the top 4 at that time. Okay.
Yep.
And then you look at what happened after Robbie Keane, and even sort of towards the end of Robbie Keane with Berbatov coming in, and all of these. We upped it a level.
Yeah.
And that's what it was.
Jake?
I think that I don't disagree with kind of the point, the general point that you're trying to make there. I think you've gone a little bit too harsh on him personally.
No, 100%.
As in, like, it's not his fault.
No. I agree with you entirely.
But I agree, because was that not at the time when we had Keane, Defoe, and someone else, someone who was a bigger guy, and they would never play
Canute?
Maybe. And I was always thinking, why will they never play Keane and Defoe together? Because it's 2 little guys, and the Premier League didn't play that way. And Robbie Keane,
Mido,
maybe.
Well, there are a few.
I'm sure he played a lot of the time, and Jermaine Defoe wouldn't get a gig. And I'm thinking to myself,
playing both.
So I don't know if that's not Keane's fault specifically, but I get what you're saying. The premise of it.
None of it was Robbie Keane's fault.
The premise of it.
It was more that Robbie Keane was the figurehead and the status of the club.
Yeah. Okay.
And to me, he not he himself, but the fact that we lauded him was what was holding us back, because I didn't feel as though he was actually good enough. And if we were saying this is the guy, well, then you're only ever going to be. People say you're only ever as good as your worst player, but you're also only ever as good as your best player, and our best player was a top 5, 6 player, not a top 4 player. That was my problem.
Was that your controversial one?
That was my controversial one.
Good. Yeah, it is controversial. I remember you when you first walked up this hill.
Yeah, and unfortunately at the time I was, you're right, I was too personal about Robbie Keane. It was never about Keane. And I look back on it, and I love Robbie Keane. I've got a lot of affection for him, and it wasn't about him. It was about where we were as a club, what he represented for us as a club, and the fans heralding him to the extent they did. To me, was like, we're getting this wrong.
Okay, all right, good hill.
Good hills.
Mine.
Can I very quickly just say one other?
Go on then.
Aaron Lennon is the most underrated player in Premier League history, both within Tottenham Hotspur and outside of Tottenham Hotspur, amongst England fans and Premier League fans generally.
Interesting you should say that.
He's just going to leave.
Interesting you should say that. I did one of those about underrated players. I'm so fed up with the hate that Harry Kane gets. I did one of those bored on Saturday, or the TikToks of blind ranking Premier League players, and I think I put Kane second and Drogba like 3rd or 4th. And I had a load of Chelsea fans. Drogba won this Premier League and that Champions League. I'm like, forget the trophies. I'm talking about the actual ability of the footballer. Harry Kane. I put Shearer. Actually, I put Kane 3rd. I put Henry and Shearer above him. Harry Kane is still getting.
Where did you put Rooney?
He didn't come up on my list. It's like you get 10. You're not a TikToker.
No.
You get it's 1 to 10. It's 1 to 10, and they'll give.
It's one of the few problems I don't have.
It's 1 to 10. It's 1 to 10, and they give you a player, and you have to rank him 1 to 10, but you don't know who you're getting next.
Right,
and Rooney wasn't a player that I got.
Right.
Anyway, my hill is that we were right to sack Mauricio Pochettino. His race was run, and
is that a hill?
Yeah, why not?
Because I think most people, I think that's a split hill.
what is it?
Well, that's why it's a hill.
No, isn't a hill? Isn't a hill something that you are meant to be on?
Oh, that no one else is on.
Yeah.
No, because plenty of people would have thought Lloris. You know, we're splitting hairs here.
Okay. Splitting hills.
No. Okay. My hill is actually that his race was run a lot earlier than when he was sacked. I think we were pretty rubbish for the majority of 2019 and got away to a Champions League final through luck more than judgment.
100%.
And I think not only did I believe that he was right to be sacked, that I also wouldn't rehire him. And this is before he lost to Panama in Canada. I think we are too emotional as a fan base. I think he's on this subject. I think he's too emotional, and I don't actually think he's that good a manager.
I agree with you about
what?
I think he found a moment in time at Spurs with a brilliant squad. I think he's a good manager. I don't think he's an elite manager.
Can I right.
Now found the hill.
No, hang on. But do you not think, okay, so I look at Chelsea last season.
Yeah.
Okay. And at the beginning of this season, I was starting to question maybe I was wrong because Maresca started very well. But in my view, Chelsea were the informed team.
Got rid too early.
They got rid far too early. And I actually think, and when they sacked him, or when he left, whatever it was, I actually thought to myself, they've made a dreadful error here. A dreadful error. And I look at it now with Maresca, and I'm still like, I just feel like Pochettino would have that Chelsea team much further along now than Maresca would have. And I actually think, now I look at it, and I wonder if Maresca was riding the coattails of the Pochettino form at the beginning of this season.
Maybe.
I mean, they're going to hump us in a couple of weeks. We know that. But
that's
nothing to judge this by.
Don't get me wrong. Okay, he's obviously a good manager.
So he's not elite.
I don't think he's an elite manager, and I don't think we should rehire him. I think rehiring him now... Obviously, I love the guy, and what he did was amazing. He took us to a Champions League final. We unbeaten at home. I love all of that. I think he inherited or made whatever you want to call it, a great team. I think he should have won something.
But they're different. He can't have inherited and made.
Well,
he didn't inherit that great a side. I don't think he didn't inherit that back four for a start. He turned Kyle Walker and Danny Rose from. Kyle Walker was a bit of a relic of that old Tottenham that, a couple of good players and a load of not very good ones, to a £60 million five-time.
Jay makes a great point about Danny Hill, because I remember...
Danny Hill?
Sorry,
Danny Rose.
We're talking about Hills here. Danny Rose. Danny Rose came out and said, one of the first things that Pochettino said to me was, I'm going to get you playing for England.
Yeah.
And he did.
I think he found a moment in time, and it
get
all
off that
worked.
Hill, Johnny.
It all worked, and I think if he comes back now... I don't think we're in a place for an emotional reunion with Pochettino, because if it doesn't work, we'll be hanging on because of the history, and you're like, I think it's all too emotional. All right,
I agree with that, but the one thing I will say on this is I don't agree that it was the right time to sack him, and I actually think that.
We didn't win away for a year.
I think it was the right time.
We didn't win away for a year.
I think it absolutely was the right time to sack him.
I think
he checked out in a lot of ways.
Yes, that part maybe I agree, but I don't think that was his fault necessarily. I think
there's a lot. It was a hard few years.
The way that the club had been run at that point, that summer where we had no transfers, which wasn't the summer.
I don't think he trusted him with the money, having bought 100 million on Sessegnon and Dombele and Lo Celso.
Yeah, but I don't know if they were his signings.
Well, we don't know, do we? I'll retract the fact that he didn't inherit a good team. He built a great team. This is my hill. He built a really good team that probably should have won something, but it didn't. You can argue the toss over why it didn't. My hill is, I think he was right to be sacked, and we shouldn't rehire him.
I agree with the second part. I think the reason why I think what he'd achieved relative to where we were when he arrived, what he achieved in terms of second place finishes, Champions League finals, I think he had more credit in the bank to have been allowed to finish that season or get further on in that season. Because obviously, let's face it, the reason why he got fired was because at that point, Levy was worried that we weren't going to get in the Champions League.
But it's also the Nuno situation. He knew he had Mourinho.
Sure,
if Mourinho wasn't there, he probably wouldn't have sacked him.
Which is why I think at the time it was allowed to stand. But I think had that been, I said this at the time, had this been another club, Liverpool or whatever, if Klopp had a couple of bad months, would they have fired him? No, because he had enough credit in the bank. And okay, Klopp had won things, but the level and the expectations were different at Tottenham. I think he outperformed every expectation.
Without
doubt. As a result, I think he deserved. I think he deserved. But that's why. But
there's more to it than that. And I don't think it was simply Tottenham taking the choice to sack him. I do think Pochettino himself, he wasn't quite as there as he had been previously. I think he was emotionally wrecked. He knew that there was the need for that painful rebuild that he spoke about. For all of that said, I think he is a very good coach. I think it would be like a bit silly to say otherwise. I think what he showed at Chelsea even last season. I said he wasn't elite. Maybe, but there are very few elites. Yeah. Okay, but I think what he showed at Chelsea last season, the form they showed towards the end of the season, it took him a bit of time, as it did when he first came to Tottenham. Yeah. It took time. But then they started clicking and they became one of the form teams. And I would have actually been very concerned about Chelsea this season if he had stayed. I also look at what Pochettino did. And as somebody, I think Dean says, he inherited brilliant potential. He inherited potential and turned it into a brilliant side with Walker, Rose, Dembele, Eriksen. And I look at this Spurs squad and I feel to myself, and I've said this in the past, I would never have wanted Pochettino to come back whilst he still had his old players there. The only one now is Son. So, but I look at this side and I see that we've got really exciting fullbacks, really exciting centre-backs. These were the foundations of what made Pochettino. Then you take a look at somebody like Archie Gray. And I actually think with this squad, it wouldn't be a terrible appointment in the summer if Pochettino came back. He wouldn't necessarily be my number one choice, but if he did come back, he'd have my full support and backing. And you say if it doesn't work,
he'd have Johnny's as well for sure.
You say if it doesn't work,
the current guy, of course.
You say if it doesn't work, what does it, if it doesn't work, look like? If he consistently got us into the top four again, and I think we're now at a point where we have the capability to spend a bit bigger in the transfer market. What we need to do is push that wage bill a bit higher.
Yeah.
But I do think we are now more set up and more stable than that sort of chaotic time that we had to navigate through, the transition of the stadium, Wembley. There were so many things going on at that time. The cards were almost stacked against him and against us a bit. And the job that he did was actually sensational.
Having to go to Wembley the season after having that fantastic home season.
The only thing that is a blemish on his record, in my view, is that he didn't turn one of the many opportunities that he created into silverware. Outside of that, the guy is unblemished, in my view, at Tottenham. And the fact that just before the Champions League final, he couldn't commit his future. And that's where I say it wasn't just about us sacking him. I think also he was thinking maybe it's the time for me to go as well.
It's very interesting to me that he's still, you see these photos of him and Levy together, who knows whether it was from 4 years ago or 4 days ago. Yeah. But there seems to still be a relationship there, which, if who would work for Daniel Levy? Well, I think Poch would definitely. The people who say,
they're still friends.
The people who say who, it looks like it. The people who say who would work for Daniel Levy are the people who would love Poch to come back. And it's quite clear that they would work together again.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable. There was an interview. Somebody from Sky Sports News went to do an interview with him recently, Gail Davis, and he said that they're still friends. He said it wasn't a personal thing and it was a business. Sometimes they are 100%.
You were right. The question was asked to him. This is a guy that sacked you, and he said, "But you've got the business and you've got the personal."
Absolutely.
And the personal, he and I always really got on. The business as well, we got on, but it came to a point where it was the right thing, and I understood it. I think it's inevitable that Pochettino will manage Tottenham again.
I think it is as well.
Whether it is the next managerial appointment or not, I don't know.
And whether or not it turns out well or not, we can't
that's
say.
But that's the same for anybody or anything. I do think that with the makings of the squad that we've got, it wouldn't be the worst appointment right now.
He's not happening.
Unless you say
I'm talking about in the summer. I'm talking about in the summer.
No, he's not coming in the summer.
You don't think so?
No, because he's got the
World Cup.
He's got the World Cup. He can't. It's not possible.
I know they've had some terrible results, but
unless they sack him, but they're not going to do that.
No, they won't.
I mean, listen, you say terrible results. The game against Panama, I didn't see it, but the stats bear out a story sometimes, and the stats there were, they lost 1-0 to Panama, who had, I think America had like 103 shots on goal and didn't score, and Panama had their first shot on goal in the 98th minute and it went in. I mean, the stats bear out a story.
Yeah, but then they lost to Canada.
But in the third, fourth place playoff, it's like, I mean,
who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's climb some more hills.
All right, that's mine.
A good hill.
Yeah, I think it's a good hill. George Pena disagrees. Dean sort of half disagrees, but as you said, Gary, that this is the team we inherited, but actually said maybe we were all right to sack him. Phil agrees with me. People will, people won't. It's my hill. It's your hill. Huh?
I said, what's a good hill?
One that creates debate.
One that's on solid granite underlay, that kind of thing. And,
solid. But
not going to landslide.
No, what are you talking about? A hill from one of our listeners or watchers, viewers. Now, Ryan, we'll go with this one before we read some out from Twitter. The hill I'll die on is that the new stadium is amazing and people only criticise it to bash Levy and Enoch. It feels lifeless only because of results on the pitch. We've talked about this briefly, skirted around this a few times. A lot of people are. I hate the new stadium. I want to go back to White Hart Lane. White Hart Lane was an amazing stadium for a general. My son wouldn't want to go back to White Hart Lane. Doesn't know it. For us, we grow up. It's where we've created our memories, our emotions.
The queue for the toilets was great, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the place was falling down. The stadium is amazing. I understand for some it might be.
The £7 bottles of Carlsberg were so nice and cold, weren't they, Gary?
they were really bad.
Come on.
The problem is we've come into this stadium with this promise of it will grow on the pitch as well, and that hasn't happened. I think that's people. Now we see it here on our Echo of Glory logo. Every time I come into this studio, I see this amazing stadium, and I'm like, bloody hell! The team that plays in there are rubbish, and they're 14th in the league. We've had some amazing nights there. City, the Palace game obviously was the opener. City in the Champions League.
Arsenal
3-0. I think the United Cup game was amazing, even though we nearly blew it. There's been some amazing games there. It's an amazing stadium. And I just think we're emotional fans, and we grow up you fall in love with players like managers, Pochettino and whoever. I wouldn't want to go back to White Hart Lane. The stadium's amazing. I just wish the team was better. So I agree with Ryan's hill.
I agree with it entirely. I think you've got to move with the times, and you've got to understand where football is going. And emotionally, you might yearn for the old White Hart Lane. We all loved it. It was my spiritual home. Grew up there. Like, you want to talk to me about religion or anything? That was my religion. That was my church. That's where I felt closest to whatever spirituality it was my old White Hart Lane. I loved it. But times progress, things move on, and it was absolutely the right thing to build this stadium. I think when we were building a stadium, I couldn't have envisaged myself anything that is more appropriate and better. I think everything about this stadium is fantastic. I know you're going to get fans going, you're the problem, this, that, the other. Actually, we're not. I think the fans that are the problem are the ones. The fans that are the problem are the ones that aren't embracing this, the ones that want to moan and whinge. You're not going to get back to the old White Hart Lane. It's gone. Forget about it now. You keep the memories, but why would I be the problem by saying I love this stadium? The fans that want to moan are the fans that go there with the wrong attitude and want to return to the old White Hart Lane. It's not going to happen. So embrace this place. It is a fantastic amphitheatre of sport. And people go, oh, but it's not just about the football. But that's every stadium now. You look at Anfield, which is a football stadium. They hold concerts, boxing matches. They're creating a load of infrastructure around it. And that's a proper football stadium, as you might call it. St James's Park, as well as having concerts.
Villa Park. We don't hear about it because we don't support the club. We're never going to go to a concert.
Every stadium now is being used to generate revenue beyond football because of PSR.
Yeah, they used to have at Newcastle the rugby league super weekend or whatever it was called, the big weekend or whatever.
Old Trafford have been hosting the rugby league for years.
And we had the rugby there this weekend, Harlequins against Saracens, I think it was. If you can't appreciate that this is the direction of football, then, number one, wake up. But in terms of a stadium, if you've got to get rid of the old White Hart Lane, and we did have to get rid of it, we did, this could not be any better.
Did I tell you that I went to Everton this season? Had I mentioned it? So when we went to Everton Fulham, the next morning we went across to Bramley Moor Dock, and you're seeing it now. They've had their test events. I actually don't think it looks that. It looks new. I'm not so sure. I don't love it. I'm not an Everton fan. I couldn't really care less. But ours looks much better. But actually, we had to drive. It's not that close to Goodison. It's like a 15-minute drive, a 10-minute drive. It's on the dock. Obviously, that whole area means nothing to me. But if we'd have moved to Stratford or whatever, it would have been terrible.
That would have. People talk about.
I love still going to we're making the parking in the same place, the same walk. Obviously, people aren't going to the same pubs and the same restaurants because they've had to close down because this, that, and the other. Unfortunately, you have to move on.
When Everton leave Goodison, they're not going to have the centre circle in their new stadium. The composite is not going to be Goodison Park. Like, you've got the old wall of the East Stand in our stadium. The footprint is still there. So how people can say the soul's been ripped out.
Because the football's crap. I agree with Ryan there.
Yeah,
because the football's
exactly
rubbish.
That.
If we were good, I think nobody would be complaining about it.
I don't think it's a massive it's a massive hill.
And you've got it, and you're 100% right. Because
it's a mound.
When you've got Gary Neville on one of the nights that the football was at its best against Arsenal, saying what was it he said? Those immortal words, and they've gone out my head now, that Spurs terrorise. Something about the atmosphere, not the team, but the atmosphere terrorising Arsenal. Now, if he's in the stadium and he said that's the loudest he's ever heard a stadium, that there is a snapshot of the potential of that stadium, and it is reflected in the football. If the football is good, and if that comes, that stadium could be an absolute ferocious pit.
Yeah, I've always...
It still needs a cheese room.
People say, the atmosphere was flat today. We got to get behind them. I think it's a two-way street.
Brutalised, that was it.
Brutalised.
It is a two-way street.
Sometimes the players and the team need to get you going.
And as you said, some of the nights and some of the games that have happened there. I said the Arsenal game was amazing. The City game in the Champions League, I remember thinking this is the best atmosphere I've ever had at a Tottenham game.
I even remember Nuno's first game, City 1-0, when Kane didn't play, but it was the summer, and there was a poisonous atmosphere that day. First game of the season, and it was poisonous, and I was like, I loved it. I was like, oh. I'm about this. Like it was, and I knew we'd beat them that day because the atmosphere was venomous. It was really venomous, like because of everything that had gone on with Harry Kane. That stadium has got soul. It's got passion, but it's about what's going on inside it. And none of this is against the old White Hart Lane. But God, I remember being at the old White Hart Lane watching us lose 1-0 to Hull or something like that. And there is this sort of fantasization about the old place. It's like, you only remember the positives about your ex-girlfriend. I think I mentioned this before. And then, one night you get her back and you remember the warts that she's got all over her back or something like that, like which you'd forgotten about.
How is she, by the way?
That's another pod.
Yeah, and those warts were anyway. You only remember the good things. This stadium's got a tremendous amount of potential, and where we are at the moment is not the fault of the stadium; it's the fault of the way the club is being run.
I'll be honest. Going to this stadium just makes me think of the bad bits of the old stadium. To be honest,
I do miss. I actually said it on Saturday at Kettering. I miss the smell of football. You walk down the high road. My son doesn't have that football smell. The burgers and just the cigarettes and all that stuff. The smell is gone. It is a bland in that.
No, there is a great walkway through. So when I go with my daughter, we park up at the school behind Bruce Grove Park, and we walk through, and there's an alleyway where you've got the Jamaican, where the Deadly King mural is. You've got the Jamaican stand there, and you've got a load of food stalls, and you really get that football smell, and particularly as you walk through that little alleyway, my daughter always coughs because the barbecue's smoking and that. But that's the football smell. So you do get
the
it.
The bloke
in
on the corner
places.
shouting peanuts.
You don't get that.
That's all gone. I get that football has become a little bit more sterilised. I understand that, but this is a wonderful place, and if the football was great, nobody would be complaining about the tourists or whatever else.
Toulon-Leinster last year in the Heineken Cup final was fantastic. So
yeah, cool, right?
I can't say it with a straight face.
Just on that, Nick Riley on our socials said the new stadium is great. It's an utter fallacy to suggest we should have stayed. The old place was falling apart. It's the football which has largely been the problem, not the ground. Fine, we agree on your hill, Ryan. Okay, another hill which I really liked was. Where is it? Because I really liked it. This is really annoying.
Grump.
No, it wasn't that one. It wasn't that one.
Sorry, Grump.
Let's read Grumps.
No, I don't want to read Grumps.
I thought you had an order here.
I do. And now I really liked it. And I scrolled down to find another one. Oh yeah, I'm going to come to Grumps after. Another Jake on, I think it was on our Instagram. Said realistically, how long? This is more of a question than a hill, but realistically, how long do you think it will take Tottenham to build ourselves up to be a trophy-winning or Champions League team again? Do you think that even if Levy went out and new ownership came in, we would see a change in the way our club is run? Can we turn it around?
That was from Hayden.
Okay, I guess this is Levy the problem? I look at that and see Nottingham Forest, who were in League One 6-7 years ago. If you'd asked any Nottingham Forest fan, you said to a Nottingham Forest fan, you'd be, lads, you'll be third in the Premier League in 7 years' time. Or a Leicester fan, you're going to win the Premier League. Or a Villa fan, when they got relegated, you'll be Champions League quarter-finalist in 2025.
But I think even more recently than that, right? Villa are going to play in the quarter-finals of the Champions League against Paris Saint-Germain in a week or two. who was their manager before this guy? It was Gerrard, who had come from Rangers, having won the league, coming with like a big fanfare about the fact he'd done so well in Scotland. Ring a bell? And then you get and then you get this guy come in, right? And suddenly they're in the Champions League. I don't think we're that far off. I don't think we are. I've said throughout the season.
We're clearly not that far off because a couple of seasons ago we were there. So we haven't slipped back that far.
And I think, exactly, that's one thing.
We got to the semi-finals of the Carabao this year, for God's sake.
Yeah, I'd like to correct myself. I didn't realise how long ago Forest were in League One. But anyway, 2008. But football comes back round.
It only really takes... There's a few things here, right? Number one, I've said all season, I think we're really close to being a very good team. And I still feel that way. I think we've got a much better squad than people give us credit for. Maybe I've just got rose-tinted glasses, but I genuinely believe we've got a good squad. I think with a new manager coming in who has a bit more of a clue, they will get a lot more out of this squad. Is it a top 4 squad? No, probably not quite yet. But then I didn't really think that Villa's was either. Emery got them there. Things can turn around very, very quickly. But the thing that resonates with me is even in a game against Fulham where we're poor, right? The reality is at 0-0, and this is most games this season, as bad as we are, a few things go our way. We could have won games and we've been poor. So it won't take that much, I don't think, for it to... I don't think it would take that much to...
we weren't that far away before, that long ago.
That was more of a question than a hill, but
Well, hang on. No, George Penya's picking me up on Stevie G. He did win the Scottish League with Rangers. I think he's the only manager to have won the league for Rangers in the last 10, 15 years. So I would argue that actually, Jorge, that Stevie G's achievements with Rangers was equally as good, if not more impressive than that of Ange. So he did come to Villa with a big fanfare, huge reputation, having just done exceedingly well in Scotland, and failed abysmally. And yet, with the same players and most of the same squad, Emery elevated the Champions League. But we've got an example in our very recent history as well. 2 points from 8 games. Harry Redknapp comes in and with the same players gets us to the cusp, the very cusp of I think it was one draw against Borough, which was contentious or something, that denied us qualifying for Europe that season. Just a different manager, same players, world of difference.
Well, look at Everton.
Just run around a bit.
Just good managers just come in and change things up. But that's getting too much, Ange, which I didn't really want to talk about. All right, back to the actual hills, really. You wanted me to read Grumpy's at Pugtastroff on Twitter. If Spurs want a
Catastrophe.
Yeah, I didn't know whether it was French.
I doubt
like
it.
Catastrophe.
Right.
If Spurs won a domestic cup under both... I'm reading.
Oh, this is a good one.
If Spurs won a domestic cup under both Redknapp and Pochettino, but didn't crack the top 4 and therefore play in the Champions League, would we be even more miserable about not mixing with the elite than we are now about the trophy drought?
That's not the question that I thought it was. I hadn't.
No, it's not a question. It's a statement. It's a hill.
It's basically the hill is
more miserable. Yeah,
the hill is top 4 is bigger than a trophy.
I see.
What do we need now?
Sure
do we need to win? Obviously, we need to win Europa League. Say we're out of the Europa League. What would have been bigger for Spurs, winning the League Cup or finishing the top 4?
I think if the Poch or Redknapp had won a trophy, then I think we'd be pissed at it being like 8th in the league right now, wouldn't we? Is that what this is saying?
I think the continuation that we'd never become a Champions League team, but would be all right. We didn't win. We haven't been in the Champions League for 10 years, but hey, Poch won us the FA Cup. It's a tough one because it's your trophy. Is top 4 a trophy? Obviously it isn't. But
it's not the top 4 finishing 4th that's the sort of thing. It's actually playing in the Champions League.
Yeah, well, you've got to finish in top 4 together.
You do, but the sort of the top 4, like being a trophy, it's not that. It's actually what it means. It's actually getting to play in the Champions League. Are you saying? I mean, we did get to the final of the Champions League though, and that Champions League final, as bad as we were, what an experience that was. Would you swap that for an FA Cup in 2009?
Yeah, I mean that's it, isn't it? As Deep's terrific.
You prefer being a runner-up in a final or winning one?
Yeah, look, top 4 is not a trophy, but we talk about the stadium. This club needs to be mixing it amongst the elites.
You know, Leicester won the league and got relegated. They wouldn't swap that league trophy for anything.
It's a difficult one because I've said football is all about moments. Look at Newcastle. They've had that moment on last Sunday. Football's about moments and memories, and winning the League Cup. They'll never forget that. But yeah, winning breeds winning, and that might help them go on and win more. For us, if we'd won an FA Cup under Poch and done nothing else, how would you view Poch's tenure at Spurs? It's a bit like, I'm going to have to mention him again, it's a bit like Ange. If he goes and wins something, has he been a success? Probably. But in the long run, Poch winning the FA Cup, not sure it would have done Spurs many favours. Being repeatedly in the top 4 now, unfortunately, whether you like it or not, is how clubs grow.
Yeah, 100%. Because you can't bring players in.
Yeah.
If you finish 7th and 8th, but if we win the FA Cup this season, not this season, if we had won the FA Cup 1 year and consistently finish 7th and 8th, it's not going to attract players to your club. Yeah.
So would we look at Poch with such affection if he just won the FA Cup?
It's difficult to really say because where else are you finishing the league?
So.
What else is going on?
How are you playing over a consistent period, 4 or 5 years? Poch is the hero for the way we played, which enabled us to finish and the consistency and how solid.
And we love him, but yet we still won nothing. It's difficult
but let's be real about it, right? Under Poch,
solid hill. This one
under Poch, we had, I think, probably in that 5-year period, more opportunities of trophies than we have had in other 5-year periods. And the reason is because when you are a team that is consistently finishing top 4, you are demonstrating you're one of the better teams. That in itself is going to create opportunities to win trophies.
Yeah.
So the top 4 to me has to be the first point, right? If you're finishing in the top 4, then you are one of the strongest teams and you have a much stronger chance of winning a trophy. If you're finishing 8th, 9th, 10th to 16th and winning a trophy, you're probably getting a little lucky with the draw or in what happened in one of the ties against one of the very good teams. I think top 4 is a symbol not only of the importance of getting to the Champions League and attracting better players, but it is also going to create in itself more opportunity to win trophies. And that is why, to me, the yardstick, the first thing that we should be thinking about is finishing top 4.
Well, Chris TH 1986, his hill was top 4 is actually better than some trophies, in brackets, League Cup and Conference League.
Right, sort of depends, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you know,
it depends how you're getting on in the league. As in, does he mean in a one-off season? If you see what I mean.
I think overall he's saying.
I think it's easy to say that now, having not won a trophy.
If we finished 10th every year, but every year won the League Cup, how would you feel? Or the FA Cup?
You'd be pretty happy with that, wouldn't you?
You'd be like serial trophy winners.
Yeah.
But you'd wonder how it's happening. Like you just would. How is that happening?
That'd be funny, wouldn't it?
Like if you are winning trophies consistently.
We used to win the FA Cup every 10 years.
Yeah.
Didn't we?
Yeah. I think the top 4 against trophy argument for a lot of clubs doesn't matter.
It's more nuanced than that.
But for us who's never won anything for a long time, is a really important discussion for some people because it depends what you want out of your club. Obviously, I want to go to Wembley and win something, but I want to be in Europe. I want to be punching up with the elite.
But the reason that we are mocked mercilessly more than any other club who similarly hadn't won trophies for a long period of time is because
Newcastle. Oh, wait a minute.
Is because we finished top 4 so consistently. So we were seen as a club that should be winning things, whereas Everton aren't seen as a club that should be winning things. Villa haven't been a club that should be seen as winning things. Newcastle, Leeds, all of these sorts of big clubs aren't getting mocked relentlessly for not winning trophies because they haven't been in the position where they've been viewed as a club that should be. That's why we get the stick, and that's why we put the expectation on ourselves as well, is because we have been very, very good consistently, demonstrated through finishing top 4 and playing Champions League football so often. The expectation is that you should win a trophy.
Yep.
If you finish 10th, 11th, 12th every season, the expectation just isn't that you should win a trophy.
Yep.
So,
okay, a couple more hills, quick one here, which we'll all agree with. At Luke Spurs, no matter how much money we're offered, they should never be red on our shirt.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
What, for the sponsor?
I knew you're going to be so like, oh, whatever on this.
Who cares?
Me. So first of all, red's an awful colour.
I've got bigger fish to fry in my life and worry about that. Seriously.
No, I agree with that. I do agree with that.
Bigger world
problems. I'm camping on that hill with Luke. Oh, hello.
That said anything but
red. No, it said never red. We had a never red campaign, and then suddenly AIA pop up.
Yeah.
Because you see some of those concept kits that people make, and even the away kit, if that just went blue, but oh my God, this is stunning. I can't wear it. I can't look. My son has it. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I agree with
that. He wanted a Kettering kit on Saturday. I'm sorry, it's got red in it. I'm not buying it for you. I am pathetic. I'm totally pathetic. But
I don't wear any red t-shirt. I don't
own anything red.
I don't really understand people who do wear red. Like,
it's an awful colour.
I don't wear red. It doesn't suit me.
I think on women, fine. But on guys,
lady in red, huh?
But like on guys, like it's just like you're wearing like red trousers or a red shirt. Like, grow up.
Grow up because you're wearing red.
No, seriously.
Luke, we agree. Awful colour shouldn't be on our kit. Okay, the one that Gary Nini mentioned before. Simon T at Spurred on 10 on social media. This will probably be our last because we've all got to get out of here by 12 o'clock. Spurs, first and foremost, should always aim to win, playing exciting, attacking football. Our history is steeped in this tradition, and managers of the ilk of Jose and Conte should never set foot through the door. Trying to win by boring the other team to death is for other clubs. I mean, he's kind of mixed up like Danny Blanchflower and Bill Nicholson quotes there, but that sticks in Spurs fans' minds. So just going back to the red. Do you drink Coca-Cola because it's red and drink Pepsi instead? Yeah, all right.
I don't. The only genuine score. The only fizzy drink I drink is beer. So
I will have Coke even though it's red. But Spurs Kings TV, another good Spurs pod. Have a listen. But anyway, going back to this, should Spurs first and foremost aim to play exciting, attacking football? Which club doesn't want their team to play exciting, attacking football? Are we? Secondary question on this really. Are we too clinging on to our emotions and our history at this club, and we just need to move on and just whatever's best for the current climate?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of there. Like whatever's best for the current climate. Listen, I think if Mourinho or Conte had won a trophy, nobody would have been really complaining too much about their style of football or whatever. I think if you read the question again, it should have just started. It should have just ended after the first 6 or 7 words.
Spurs first and foremost should always aim to win, playing exciting, attacking football.
Spurs first and foremost should always aim to win. That's it.
I had to win. Okay,
right. That's it. Like, the problem with if you think 1-0 to the Arsenal, right? Back then they weren't complaining. Why not? Because they were winning.
Yeah.
Okay. And if Conte or Mourinho had been winning, I assure you, we wouldn't be complaining. We'd sit there. And actually, maybe another hill. Mourinho, I think, was a little bit unlucky that he had COVID, because if we had been in the stadium, winning 1-0, not making mistakes,
Gareth Bale getting even though he refused to play,
whoever it was, right, grinding out results. I actually think it's something that he builds a very us mentality around it all. And a very unifying, and you take a look at somebody like Atletico Madrid manager Simeone. They don't actually. I thought they were fantastic against Real Madrid, by the way. But generally, he has had to play a much more attritional style of football, attritional, pragmatic style of football. But they love him for it because it's very unifying. We're digging in. We're really fighting for the shirt. We are letting nothing past us. And if you have that, actually, you can really get on board with it. You really, really can. I think the reason it didn't work for Mourinho is because we weren't in the stadium. It looked horrendous. It was boring to watch. But you can so easily see why it does work for Mourinho. So I'm not advocating for a boring style of football. I'm advocating for a winning style of football. And when it happens, you get behind it. And then it really sort of starts to... That's what happened with Pochettino. We played a winning style of football and we all got behind it. And then it just... The fans and the team were in unison.
So you mentioned Simeone. Not that it's ever going to happen. So people like Simon, and this is not a criticism, wouldn't want a Simeone because of the football he will bring.
Oh, I would love Simeone.
But so there are fans out there who would say, no, I'm not having him.
I would love him. I would love him because it's the culture that he breeds around the club. He breeds a real passion, a real feeling for. You can see it. The Atletico Madrid players, for me, played in that tie against Real Madrid with a great deal more feeling and passion for their club than the Real Madrid players. To me, it looked like one superbly, brilliantly coached team. against a team of individuals who are just phenomenally good and can make something happen at the drop of a hat, right? Don't want to get too much into Atletico, but the point is, for me, it's not about the style of football. It's about how unifying you are as a team and a fan base. And that is when you really win, is when the team and the fans together are really on the same path, believing in one another, what we're doing. Then you've got a win. Then you've got something that wins. And I don't think if you win every game 1-0 with 2 shots on goal, you'd learn, I trust my team here. I trust that we're not going to concede. They're not going to make a mistake. And you could really get behind it. And I've got no problems with that at all. It's just that, more often than not, it doesn't work.
Don't like him. Doesn't speak English.
All right. Didn't know you. Okay. I think George Penny's right. The results can make you forgive anything. I think at the time you might be, God, this is boring, but you'd appreciate the winning. Yeah. And looking back, you'd go, oh, that was incredible. We were so hard to beat. Look at that Chelsea team. They let in 15 goals that season.
I agree. I agree with Gary. I think I don't care. I don't care. This whole Tottenham way, the West Ham way, we laugh at West Ham when their fans say the West Ham way. Yeah. We say the Tottenham way and people go, what's that? Not winning anything. So it's not happening.
A quick one from Luke. We've got a lot of Lukes. I don't know if any of them are the same. His hill really is, we should always have 1 or 2 entertainers in the side, a Hoddle, Waddle or a Gaza. Are those kind of players going out of the game now?
Yeah, because I know what he means. You want a maverick in your team.
Ginola, get you off your feet.
But
are there those players?
Managers, it's not so much are there those players. I think coaches now play much more to systems, and the system requires 11 players. So you're not getting players that have the license so much to express themselves in the way that they did in the past. I just don't think that players are allowed to be that way.
Yeah, the equivalents would be Foden, Cole Palmer.
Yeah. Yeah, but even those players are playing within a system and within, very much within the context and confines of how the manager wants.
Jack Grealish when he was good.
Yeah. Jack Grealish, and it was why Pep's not really picking him anymore.
I don't know if that's why. I don't know.
I think so. I think it's still system-based.
Yeah, but there's still, Eden Hazard, there's still a place for these players within a system. You're never going to get, Ginola free role. Whoever's playing at left back's completely fucked, basically, because Ginola's nowhere to be seen. But Clive Wilson or
you kind of started seeing it with Rafa van der Vaart, and I think it's why he left when Pochettino came in, is because we've got a system, and you're a maverick, mate. You don't fit. As good as you are, as brilliant as you are, you don't fit. And it's a shame. It is a shame. Gaza's different because Gaza was a central midfielder, and I think, if you put Gaza in a 4-3-3, for example, today, I think he would just it'd be sensational. Yeah. I think if you put Gaza in any system, he'd be sensational.
Gary's wearing Luke says he's wearing a red jumper. Luke, mate,
grow up.
All right, we're done. In summary,
I just want you to read the last 2 very quickly. That was on your list that you sent us. Michelle Lawrence.
Oh yeah, Michelle Lawrence. Sorry, Michelle, big fan of the show. Keeps going on that Bergvall would thrive as a right-sided midfielder. Not having that.
No, that hill.
You can stay on your hill.
That hill's collapsed.
Enjoy it up there. And the bloke called Your Excellency on social media. Tottenham could have Klopp, Guardiola, and Ancelotti in the dugout, and it won't make a difference as long as Levy is.
Come on, Your Excellency, you're better than that.
Well, we're not doing that chat here.
There was one other that we're not going to have a chance to discuss now, but it might become relevant soon, which is that if Ange wins the Europa League, is he one of the most successful Spurs managers of all time?
Well, next Monday, once again, we don't have a game to preview or review, and we're going to go back to Ange on Monday, and we're going to start talking about...
He ain't getting away for that much
We're going to start talking about the final, whatever it is, 10 league games,
Furlong.
8 league games, and the Europa League, and where we might end up. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
That's going to be next week's discussion, so we'll be back next Monday talking about if we win something... where do we go with all this? In summary, thank you for that. I enjoyed that. We didn't have to talk about Spurs getting beat or previewing Spurs getting beat again. So it was nice. And to get a sense of what fans think. So in summary, we should stay in the stadium, just play better football.
No, we should leave the stadium.
Rebuild the old White Hart Lane.
Rebuild the old White Hart Lane. Get Gaza and Waddle back. And
going to that stadium when the weather gets a bit better and you don't have to wear 10 layers or whatever, it's fantastic. You can, especially when there's early games, and you can stay behind, you stay afterwards and watch whatever
You're the problem, Jake.
I'm the problem. Sue me. I like a pie and chicken nuggets. What can I say?
You couldn't get that in the old stadium?
The pies in the new stadium are first class.
They are actually pretty good.
And the chicken place next to the South Stand.
It's good.
It's really good.
Yeah. but the football's rubbish, which we're going to talk about again next week. All right. So we've all died on our heels.
Have we got a game to preview next week?
Well, we got Southampton. We got Chelsea. No, I'm so confused.
No, we don't.
No, we don't.
We don't.
We don't. Sorry.
Oh, so it's FA Cup.
No, we do. We do. Sorry, we've got Chelsea to preview next week.
Oh, next week. It's Monday today.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's FA Cup this weekend, isn't it?
Yeah. Chelsea's still in the FA Cup.
Don't know. I lost interest.
They're not. We play Chelsea next Thursday.
They lost to Brighton. So we play Chelsea next. We've got 2 games really to talk about. Brighton and Southampton.
No, Chelsea and Southampton.
Chelsea and Southampton is right.
I'm losing the plot. It's 12 o'clock. Turn into a pumpkin in a minute.
Oh, I don't want to preview Chelsea.
You don't want to preview Chelsea?
Glass slipper.
All right, we're done. It's 12 o'clock. Thank you for that. I enjoyed that. Nice not having to talk about all the other stuff.
Yeah.
More of that. Another time. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you for listening. Thank you for your comments as always. Sorry we couldn't get to them all. We will be back next week where we will have to talk about actual football. We will see you next week, and up the Spurs.